Welcome to Wisdom Ways weekly live stream. I'm Carly Swenson. I'm the communications coordinator here at Wisdom Ways. And today, for our weekly spiritual theme, I'm going to be discussing the concept of forgiveness, which is one of those really fun spiritual concepts because everybody kind of understands what forgiveness is. I mean, even as a kid, like we learn to be nice and share and say thank you and say I'm sorry. And so forgiveness and holding yourself accountable and kind of all of that is sort of part of our social constructs. It's part of, civilized society. But it doesn't make it necessarily easy to embody just because it is always around and it is something that we're all familiar with, but it doesn't necessarily make it easy. And I think a huge part of the discomfort that comes with forgiveness is based in a lot of fear of discomfort and the fact that we're not always taught how to deal with difficult emotions or how to move past things that are challenging, traumatic, difficult, when we've been hurt. Sometimes, like for example, me, I didn't know how to have boundaries. I didn't learn about having boundaries until I was like in my late 20s, which is too old. I mean, unless if everyone's on their own journey. But I know for me, figuring out boundaries then left me with the uncomfortable position of having to forgive myself for having not had them before and for letting people in some ways take advantage of me or manipulate me or, not be as kind as, they should have or I thought they should have. But, we have to allow ourselves to open to that discomfort and sit with it and realize we're all growing, evolving, healing people trying to figure out what we're doing. And the more we can meet ourselves with that grace and compassion, for things that we feel like we need to forgive of ourselves, the more we can release and forgive and let that go in others. Another big thing to consider with forgiveness externally is that we tend to let it depend on shoulds. The other person should feel bad. The other person should say this. The other person should get what's coming to them. The other person should. And the more that we occupy ourselves with this external should that we ultimately have no control over. You have no control over how another person, interacts or does stuff. We only have control over how we choose to meet it. And when we really realize that forgiveness and release are allows for our own freedom because we don't have to be preoccupied with the hurt or the trauma or the frustration or the anger. When you release those shoulds, you're able to move past that. We're going to go into a little meditation here for a moment. And especially with forgiveness, I think there are a lot of varying levels. There's that person who cut you off in traffic who was annoying and deserves your forgiveness. And then maybe there's people who caused heartbreak or much deeper lasting hurt that maybe aren't as easy to forgive. And that's okay. I think that's a huge thing to remember, that you can't force forgiveness in those ways. You just have to be willing to allow it to happen if and when you're ready. So be kind and just be open to releasing without trying to force. Because you can't force feelings. You can't force forgiveness if it just isn't there yet. But just being open to the concept of that in your life is really all that, we ask spiritually. All right, so I invite you to get comfortable how, if you're seated or if you're laying against a surface, feel free to plant your feet on the ground and allow for a straight, comfortable spine, whatever works best for you. And I'm going to do this singing bowl. And I just invite you to rest your hands on your heart and just notice your breath. And we're going to allow the breath to flow through your heart space. So really feel, your chest and your heart and your breath and how all of this life force, it just moves through you all the time in this beautiful flow. And if we allow it, as we breathe, we're able to let that flow sort of gently wash over our heart. And if you're willing to, feel free to bring something light to mind that maybe you'd like to forgive yourself for. Or maybe somebody close to you that just deserves forgiveness, deserves that gentleness from you. And with each breath, just inhale that new, refreshing love and opportunity, breathing in that possibility. And as you breathe out, just allow for release. Allow for that gentle unfurling of any of those tight emotions that might be sitting in your body. And take a moment to just scan your body. And if you have any tightness or discomfort or uncomfortable feelings that kind of prop up as you just kind of sit with it, just inhale love to those parts. As you breathe, imagine that just flowing into your form, into your being, and just going to rest in those places that need awareness and that need healing and release. And know that you deserve to meet yourself with this compassion here. And in the stillness of the moment, you're always welcome to just be and meet yourself without expectation. So I invite you to take a couple more breaths. Just really bringing it into all of your being. And then I invite you to bring your awareness back. And we'll use this again. It's always tricky because I never know quite how loud the singing bowl is going to be. But as we finish up talking about forgiveness, I think it's, as it is uncomfortable, to talk about sort of the cycles that we get into. And one of them is kind of a trauma cycle where if somebody hurt us, sometimes we don't want to revisit that for the potential of forgiveness or for the potential of healing because we just don't know how and we aren't aware of it. And so we kind of avoid that because we know when we do delve back into it mentally or emotionally, it just kind of re-traumatizes and it just sort of concretes some of that bad that came along with it, maybe some of that victimhood or ways that we felt sort of disempowered, and it kind of concretes that belief in ourselves when it isn't an accurate, belief of who we are. And so there's a level of awareness that has to be made space for. We have to make space for a certain amount of awareness and compassion when we're inviting in forgiveness, because we have to be aware that either who we are has changed and we can grow and we can be different and we can forgive ourselves for decisions we made when we didn't know better. But in the same way, we can extend that to others, that, everyone's on their own journey and we all are just humans trying to human, raised by other humans trying to human. And it's difficult and it's a challenge for everybody, and bringing that empathy can really help you just kind of calm the hurt and the anger that can kind of well up. So I just invite you to allow that grace, and especially for yourself, you deserve your own forgiveness. And if that's hard, it's understandable, but just know that, you're a human, we make mistakes and we learn, and you are an amazing being that it gets to exist here, and you deserve your own love and forgiveness. So thank you so much for joining us. Marian should be back next week. And if you have any additional topic suggestions for spiritual themes, we'd love to hear them. Please feel free to put them in the comments. Thank you so much.